So this idea of two-way education that was developed by Harris is essentially a way that we can incorporate both Western ideas of teaching and also Indigenous ideas of teaching. And simply, Harris suggests that we just begin to normalise these two different perspectives in our teaching and normalise it and just making it a part of our classroom culture. So in a nutshell, this two-way theory developed by Harris is just incorporating our the Western pedagogies of teaching, or the Western ways of teaching, and also incorporating the Indigenous perspectives in teaching and just normalising that culture. So when we talk about Yunkaporta's 8 ways pedagogy, he simply steps out 8 ways of Indigenous learning within our classrooms. So when we develop activities for the classroom to incorporate these 8 ways of learning, we can start to use tangible resources. So for example, when we want to incorporate the element of land links within our lessons, we might take our lesson outside or parts of our lesson outside, so that not only are we catering for these Indigenous kids who may love to just sit on the ground, kick off their shoes if that's part of school policy, to sit in a circle on the ground, but it's also creating and establishing a culture within just our classrooms in general that we can actually just go and learn in a different space. And I think this is great because we are not only accepting of this Indigenous way of learning, but also just normalising it as a part of our classroom culture. So another example would be if we're using the element of symbols and images in our work, and particularly I'm an English and history teacher for secondary school, so within both those subjects, symbols and images are just everywhere, and there's something that we are always incorporating in our lessons. So when we do get texts and when we are looking at texts from different perspectives and different cultures, we can actually decode them and deconstruct them and find the meaning through symbols and images that are put in those texts. And I know through talking with colleagues that sometimes finding these texts can be difficult, especially when we want to incorporate those Indigenous perspectives. But I've found that even using resources such as children's books, which most people would think like, oh, they're not great for secondary school, but if we use those use these storybooks in these secondary classrooms, it's actually saying or giving the message to the kids that, this book is aimed for a primary school audience, and that might be the simplicity and the language is simple, but actually the elements, the symbols and the pictures that are in these books and the perspective from which it's written is actually quite complex, and we can just deconstruct these texts to then make meaning make meaning of these symbols and images.